Blood runs cold in Chicago tonight. The streets that once whispered loyalty now echo with betrayal. Tommy Egan built his empire on trust. But what happens when that trust gets shattered by the man he once called his brother? The city that made him powerful is about to test him harder than ever before. Because this time, the war isn't against an enemy from the outside. It's a war between brothers. Tommy versus Diamond, a bond turned battlefield, a friendship turned feud. And as the tension rises, one thing becomes clear. Only one man will walk away with the crown. Chicago's night sky glows red, not from the sunset, but from the chaos waiting to explode. After the dust settled at the end of last season, Tommy stood taller than ever. He had survived the Flynn family's wrath, taken control of key corners, and earned a kind of respect that didn't come easy in these streets. For a moment, it almost looked like Tommy had found balance, business booming, alliances steady, and the streets finally quiet. But in power, peace is never permanent. Diamond, on the other hand, was trying to rebuild. Fresh out of one war and still carrying the scars of another, he wanted to keep CBI clean, or at least cleaner than before. He had dreams of turning things legit, stepping out of the shadows that nearly swallowed his life. But the game doesn't let go that easily. Every time Diamond tried to step out, something or someone pulled him back in. And this time, that someone was Tommy. The tension between them didn't start with gunfire or betrayal, it started with ambition. Tommy saw Chicago as a land of opportunity, a city ready for the taking. Diamond saw it as a chance for redemption. They were two men chasing power, but into very different ways. One was fueled by revenge, the other by responsibility. And in a city built on secrets and greed, those two paths could never run side by side forever. Their partnership had been strong once, ruthless but respectful. Tommy admired Diamond's discipline, and Diamond respected Tommy's fire. Together, they were unstoppable. But that kind of power draws enemies. Whispers started floating around about stolen shipments, missing money, and deals made in the dark. Neither man wanted to believe the other could be behind it, but trust doesn't survive long in a world where everyone's got something to hide. It began small. A few suspicious looks, a few words left unsaid. Tommy started noticing things, Diamond skipping meetings, CBI soldiers answering calls they shouldn't, corners running late on product. And when Tommy questioned it, Diamond pushed back. Not out of guilt, but out of pride. He didn't want to be treated like one of Tommy's soldiers. He was a leader, not a follower. And Tommy, the man who trusts no one but himself, took that as a threat. Behind the scenes, the city was shifting. Claudia Flynn was moving pieces of her own, whispering poison into the right ears. Jennard, always waiting in the shadows, saw a chance to divide and conquer. They didn't need to attack Tommy and Diamond directly. They just had to make them doubt each other. And once that seed was planted, it didn't take long to grow. Tommy's paranoia started eating away at his focus. Every move Diamond made felt like a setup. Every silence felt like a lie. But Diamond was fighting his own war, trying to hold his crew together, trying to keep the police off their backs, trying to protect his brother Jennard even when he didn't deserve it. What neither of them saw coming was how perfectly their enemies were playing them against each other. Then came the moment that changed everything. A shipment went missing, millions gone overnight. No witnesses, no signs, just gone. Tommy blamed CBI, Diamond blamed Tommy's crew. And in one heated argument, years of respect turned into rage. Words like bullets, sharp and final, cutting deeper than any wound. The air turned cold, and both men realized the same painful truth. They couldn't trust each other anymore. In Chicago, betrayal doesn't come with a warning. It comes with a handshake, a smile, and a knife in the back. And as the two men walked away from that argument, something inside both of them broke. The brotherhood was over. What started as business had become personal. The calm before the storm was gone, and the storm itself was already on its way. The streets of Chicago have always thrived on one rule: loyalty keeps you alive. Betrayal gets you buried. But loyalty only lasts as long as power feels equal. And for Tommy and Diamond, that balance shattered the moment one made a move without the other's blessing. It started quietly. A deal too good to be true. A new supplier offering cheaper product, faster routes, and guaranteed protection. Diamond saw an opportunity to give CBI a future beyond Tommy's shadow. He didn't tell Tommy about it, not because he wanted to cross him, but because he wanted to stand on his own for once. To show the city and himself that he could run Chicago without anyone's permission. But secrets never stay buried in Tommy's world. The man's built a career sniffing at lies before they even form. And when word reached him that CBI had made a deal behind his back, he didn't see it as business. He saw it as betrayal. In Tommy's eyes, Diamond had chosen ambition over brotherhood. And once Tommy feels betrayed, there's no going back. The next few days were thick with tension. Chicago's air felt heavy, like the city itself knew a war was about to begin. Every crew member on both sides felt it, whispers spreading from block to block. Tommy's pissed, Diamond's playing his own game. CBI's about to split. It was like a bad omen rolling through every alley, every corner, every bar that had ever hosted a power deal. Tommy didn't come at Diamond right away. That's not his style. He watched, he waited. He wanted proof, not just rumors. So he sent his people out. Ghost moves, quiet checks, and marked cars tailing CBI shipments. And when one of his men brought back photos of Diamond meeting with a Flynn contact, that was all Tommy needed to see. In his mind, Diamond had joined the enemy, but here's the twist. That meeting wasn't what Tommy thought. Diamond wasn't cutting a deal with Claudia. He was warning her, trying to stop the Flynns from moving in on their territory. But Tommy didn't know that. He saw the picture, saw the handshake, and that was enough. In the power universe, perception is deadlier than truth. So Tommy made his move. He hit one of Diamond's distribution spots, fast, loud, and brutal. No one died, but the message was clear. I see you. I'm not flying anymore. When Diamond heard what happened, something inside him snapped. He'd spent years trying to keep peace, trying to move right. But Tommy had just declared war. The betrayal cut both ways. To Tommy, Diamond had broken trust. To Diamond, Tommy had crossed a line. And suddenly, these two men who once ran Chicago side by side were standing on opposite sides of the same battlefield. The fallout spread like wildfire. Crews started picking sides. Corners changed hands overnight. Old grudges resurfaced. People who once swore loyalty to CBI began disappearing, showing up under Tommy's flag. And Tommy, ruthless, relentless Tommy, started moving like a ghost again. No hesitation, no warning, no mercy. Meanwhile, Diamond's world began to crumble. His crew questioned his leadership. Jennard saw an opening and started whispering poison again. Tommy never respected you. He used you, the same words that had started 100 wars before. Diamond tried to keep his head, tried to tell himself this could still be fixed. But the streets don't forgive weakness, and every moment he hesitated, Tommy grew stronger. Late one night, Diamond walked into one of his old bars, the same spot where he and Tommy first made their pact. The walls still smelled like whiskey and blood. He sat at the same table, staring at the empty chair across from him. The silence felt heavy. He knew what was coming. The city that once bowed to them was now forcing them into a fight neither wanted but both knew was inevitable. And somewhere out there, Tommy sat in his car, eyes cold, gun in hand, watching the lights of the south side flicker like dying stars. He wasn't angry anymore. He was focused. That's the part people never understand about Tommy. His rage burns hot, but his revenge is ice cold. He doesn't yell, he doesn't threaten, he acts. And once he's set on someone, not even God himself can stop him. Chicago was about to bleed again. Not because of drugs, not because of the Flynns, not even because of power. This time, it was personal. This was betrayal in its purest form, brother against brother, pride against pride, love turned into hate. And as the city braced for what was coming, one thing was certain. When Tommy, Egan, and Diamond go to war, Nobody walks away clean. The first shots weren't fired in a back alley or a drug deal gone wrong. They were fired in silence, through looks, through choices, through pride. Tommy and Diamond didn't need bullets to start a war. Their names alone were enough to make the city tremble. The streets began to divide like a cracked mirror, each piece reflecting loyalty, fear, and confusion. Every hustler, every soldier, every corner boy had to choose Egan or CBI, and no one wanted to be caught in the middle. Tommy moved first. That's how he operates: fast, surgical, no time for warnings. His crew hit CBI stash houses across the south side, cutting off Diamond's cash flow overnight. No blood, just pressure. Tommy wasn't looking to destroy Diamond, not yet. He wanted to squeeze him, make him feel small, force him to beg for peace. But Tommy should have known better. Diamond doesn't beg. He rebuilds. He reclaims. He fights. The city changed in a matter of days. Streets once alive with business now felt haunted. Corners that had Tommy's men one night had Diamond's the next. Cops were everywhere, drawn in by the noise of power-shifting hands. Every deal became a gamble, every meeting a setup. And through it all, the tension between Tommy and Diamond grew thicker, darker, unstoppable. Tommy knew how to fight a street war. He'd done it all his life. But this one was different. This wasn't about survival. It was about betrayal. Every move Diamond made felt like a personal insult. Every one a slap in the face. And yet, deep down, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, he'd overreacted. But pride is louder than reason, and in Tommy's world, admitting doubt feels like weakness. Diamond wasn't innocent either. His anger burned just as deep. He kept replaying the moment Tommy's crew hit his stash spots, the moment he realized his so-called brother didn't trust him anymore. That night changed something in him. The calm, collected Diamond everyone knew was gone. Now, every decision came with a hint of vengeance. Every conversation with his crew began with one rule: no talking to Tommy's people. The line had been drawn. And then came the street's favorite kind of chaos: betrayal inside betrayal. One of Diamond's closest men, Rico, started selling information to Tommy. Every time Diamond made a move, Tommy knew before it happened. He stayed 3 steps ahead, cutting deals and intercepting shipments like a man who could see the future. When Diamond found out, it broke him. He didn't even yell. He just looked at Rico, a man he'd fed, clothed, and trusted, and said, "You chose your side." The next morning, Rico was gone. No one asked where Tommy heard about it and smiled. Not out of joy, but out of understanding. That's how the game goes. Once trust dies, everything after it becomes survival. He poured himself deeper into the war, pushing his people harder, moving his product faster. But the harder he pushed, the emptier it all started to feel. Every victory was hollow. Every win came with the same ghost: Diamond's face. The brother he lost not to death, but to the game. Meanwhile, Diamond began to strike back. Smart, silent hits, not the kind Tommy expected. He didn't go for Tommy's crew. He went for his money. Banks, fronts, warehouses. One by one, Diamond's men started freezing out Tommy's flow. Every truck that left the docks went missing. Every drop Tommy planned got hijacked. Slowly, Diamond was turning Tommy's aggression against him, starving his operation, making him fight blind. And through all of this, Chicago itself became the third character in their war, a breathing, bleeding city caught between two kings. Sirens screamed louder than the wind. Empty streets whispered names that were once legends. The people could feel it in the air. Something was coming. Something final. Tommy sat alone one night, the city lights flickering through the windshield of his car. His gun rested beside him, untouched. For the first time in a long time, he looked tired. Not weak, but weary, like a man who'd finally realized that power doesn't heal wounds, it just hides them. Across town, Diamond stood on the roof of his gym, staring at the same city skyline. To men, to visions, one inevitable ending. And in that silence between them, that invisible battlefield stretching across Chicago, the truth hit hard. The real betrayal wasn't the missing shipment, the secret deal, or the broken trust. The real betrayal was that they ever believed they could rule this city together. Chicago doesn't share its crown. It makes you fight for it. And as the wind howled across the rooftops, both men knew what had to happen next. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was here. The city didn't wake up to peace that morning. It woke up to smoke. Chicago's skyline, usually bright with ambition, now burned with the consequences of pride. Every corner that once hustled with quiet deals had turned into a battlefield. The lines were no longer blurry. It was Tommy versus Diamond, and everyone else was just trying to survive between them. Tommy made the first move. Not a hit, not a warning, a statement. He rolled deep into the south side with his crew, headlights cutting through the early dawn fog. His trucks carried no product, only fire. They hit one of Diamond's key warehouses, a spot CBI had used since the old days. The explosion could be heard for blocks. Flames climbed high enough to paint the morning sky red. Tommy didn't stay to watch. He just drove off, jaw tight, eyes colder than steel. To him, this wasn't war anymore. It was closure. Diamond saw the smoke from miles away. He didn't rage, didn't shout. He just stood there quiet, still, like a man who had already lost something more important than money or territory. But silence doesn't mean surrender. He turned to his crew and said, "No more talking. No more waiting. It's time." That was all it took. The south side started moving like one machine, old connections waking up, old debts being called in. Diamond wasn't the comboss anymore. He was the storm Tommy had created. By nightfall, the streets turned into chessboards soaked in gasoline. Every block had a watcher, every alley a sniper, every phone call a risk. People who had worked together a week ago were now aiming guns at each other. Tommy's crew started feeling the squeeze. His supply routes vanished. His safe houses got raided. Every time he tried to strike, Diamond was already gone, moving smarter, quieter, deadlier. But Tommy doesn't lose control. Not outwardly. When his people panicked, he stayed cold. "Let them come," he said. "I'll bury every last one of them." He didn't care about money anymore. He didn't even care about power. It was about sending a message. You don't betray Tommy Egan and walk away breathing. That's the code he lived by. Then came the night Chicago would never forget. Rain fell hard, washing the streets clean just before they got dirty again. Word spread fast. Tommy and Diamond were both heading to the same spot, an abandoned train yard near the edge of the city. Nobody knew who called the meeting. Some said it was Claudia Flynn. Others said Jennard set it up. Maybe it was fate. Either way, both men showed up, ready to end it. Tommy arrived first, walking between the rusted tracks, his white sneakers splashing through puddles. His face carried no fear, just that familiar quiet rage that made men twice his size step back. Minutes later, Diamond appeared from the shadows, no crew, no backup, just him. To Kings standing face to face in the middle of nowhere, the echoes of the rain their only audience. For a long time, they didn't speak. They just stared. Years of trust, pain, loyalty, and betrayal hung heavy in the air between them. Finally, Tommy broke the silence. "You had my back once," he said. "Now you got my city." Diamond's voice came back low and steady. "I never wanted your city, Tommy. I wanted peace. You just didn't know what that looked like. It wasn't a conversation. It was confession and war rolled into one. Every word felt like a bullet. And when words ran out, reality took over. Gunfire cracked the air like thunder. Crews hiding in the dark opened up from both sides, chaos exploding in seconds. The train yard lit up with muzzle flashes, rain turning to steam as bullets hit metal. It wasn't business anymore. It was personal. Tommy moved like a ghost, ruthless and fast, every shot deliberate. Diamond fought like a man with nothing left to lose. They didn't fight to win. They fought to survive, to prove a point. By the time the smoke cleared, half the yard was burning. Sirens wailed in the distance. The city's underworld would talk about that night for years, the night Chicago bled, the night the Brotherhood truly died. When the noise faded, Tommy stood bleeding but alive. He looked across the flames and saw Diamond on one knee, still breathing, still staring back. Neither man raised his gun again. There was no point. The war had taken everything. The streets were lost, their crews scattered, the empire gone. All that was left was the truth. They had both become the very thing they swore they'd never be, enemies. As dawn broke, Tommy walked away from the yard, smoke trailing behind him like a shadow he could never escape. Diamond stayed, watching the sunrise over a city built on lies and loyalty. Both men knew this wasn't over. Power never ends with peace, it ends with control. And Chicago wasn't done with them yet. In the world of power, every betrayal births a new king. But in this war, there might not be one left standing.